Hi, I'm astrologer Penny Dix and welcome to my midweek Wednesday Astro Witter. And what I do in this particular episode is I look at the energy taking us from today, Wednesday, which is the 17th of September, how it will affect you, how it might be affecting world events, and this will take us up to, of course, the all-important partial solar eclipse, new moon in Virgo on Sunday the 21st. But I won't actually be talking much about the eclipse today. I'm saving that for Sunday when I do my live stream. But what about today, the 17th? Because actually, if you joined me for my live stream last Sunday, the beginning of the week, if you remember when I was discussing it, the energy was a bit, yeah, no, it's okay, not much happening, just kind of jogging along. And here we are on Wednesday. And here we are with several planets of the personal inner planets jostling position as they prepare to change signs. So there is an emphasis of energy on the end degrees of some of the signs. Now, Saturn, as we know, has already gone retrograde and returned to the sign of Pisces, and today is already back at 28 degrees. Today, Mercury, our planet of communication, ideas, thought, is in Virgo, the sign it rules, co-rules with Chiron, our wounded healer, and Mercury is at 28 degrees of Virgo because Mercury tomorrow moves into Libra. But I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. Let's just have a sense and a feel about how this energy today, because this energy is kicking us off with a few days of change and change in communication, some tension of opposites, some moments that may seem quite ouch moments where you think, oh, which way is this going to go? So it may be that what we have to be careful of with this Saturn opposite Mercury, which is slowing us down, is trying to encourage us to use the tension of the opposite to think things through before we actually talk about them. Because Mercury in Virgo tends to be detailed and sense and feel that Mercury has looked at all the details and got everything under control. Saturn in Pisces is suggesting there may be a little bit of confusion, illusion, not seeing things quite clearly with what one may be trying to communicate. So I wonder how that's going to play out on the world stage with President Trump's visit to London, which started today with all the trimmings and music, brass bands, you name it, he had it. I think he's getting a fly pass later, as he was welcomed by King Charles III and Queen Camilla and the Prince and Princess of Wales, with Melania, the First Lady, at, of course, Windsor Castle. And this might be a little heads up to him to just not get caught into the detail and to just actually enjoy the awe, the awesomeness of being a guest in such a salubrious establishment. Because whatever one may feel or think about the American administration, that's not what we're here to discuss. The fact is, it is a great privilege to have been invited to this meeting with the royal family at Windsor. And even though we know everything comes at a price. So, of course, the United Kingdom are hoping for better trade deals, better deals all round, better recognition. And America will have its own agenda too. But I think Mr. Trump just needs to be a little bit careful that he doesn't get carried away with the pomp and circumstance, and that he minds his P's and Q's, because this energy of Saturn opposite Mercury, and this is where you might find it unfolding in your own personal lives, is how we really find it quite difficult to tolerate idiocy, stupidity. We won't be taking prisoners today with this energy. If whoever the other is doesn't get the meaning of what we're saying in the first instance, I think we're going to be impatient. And of course, Saturn's presence is actually suggesting try not to be impatient and allow the other to finish what they're saying. Don't get carried away with what you want to say, but allow the other to speak, listen to them, and listen so that you can then formulate an appropriate reply, something we don't always do. Now, this is all being enacted out today as it launches us into the rest of this week. And it's still being held in a kind of, well, it's a kite, and actually we have a grand trine, but it's an out of sign grand trine, because with Mercury in Virgo, Mercury, of course, is, even though it's at the late degrees of Virgo, it is actually trining Uranus retrograde in Gemini. Uranus, our planet of the unexpected, so expect a few twists and turns and unexpected events around the next few days, especially taking us up to the energy of that new moon partial solar eclipse on Sunday. And remember, in turn, Uranus is still trining Pluto, the planet of transformation, of empowerment, of power, of change. In Aquarius, power to the people. Pluto still retrograde in Aquarius. There is so much here about power to the people. And I know that with the royal visit of President Trump to the United Kingdom, they've been very mindful of giving the impression that he's getting a lot of showtime and visibility, whereas actually they're playing it very close to their chests and carefully, basically because of security, because we live in interesting times, and between two eclipses, not a good time. And also because there probably will, in London and around England, be protests against the Trump regime. So they will be trying to protect him from that. But I think with the energy today, certainly today, he will be more or less given an easy time of it, as long as he doesn't get carried away with the details of what he's trying to put across. I also just want to draw your attention to the fact that we've still got Venus in Leo sextiling Mars in Libra. Now, Mars is also about to move in to Scorpio, the sign it co-rules with Pluto. Now, that is going to be a big transit next week, but I think we have to start being aware of it now, because it is already out of sign, loosely squaring Pluto in Aquarius. This is volatile. this is dangerous. And thankfully, the events in London with the visit of the President of the United States today are not happening next week. I don't think this week's great either, astrologically for it. But next week, with Mars square Pluto on the 24th, that could be a little bit hot, a little bit dangerous. However, let's just move on to what is happening. What else this Mercury in Virgo opposite Saturn means, because a couple of days later, in fact, on Friday, I think is when we have, yes, Friday, Mercury will actually be opposite Neptune. So we've got this interesting build-up of energies. So let's just think again a little bit about the differences that we get from Mercury in Virgo as opposed to Mercury moving into Libra, where it is going to oppose Neptune in Aries. Mercury in Virgo is opposing Saturn. So this is where I think we can feel on a personal level that we get self-doubt. We start getting very anxious and concerned and worried that the things that we want to happen are just never, ever, ever going to happen. I think we can feel quite out in the cold, quite finding it hard to trust an inner spiritual process, that there are things happening unseen behind the scenes that are busying themselves away, excuse me, at creating the right circumstances and energies for you to manifest the plans that you wish to bring into your life. So we might find that we oscillate a little bit, especially today, between clarity and confusion. Saturn is bringing in that confusion in the fogginess of Pisces. And we're going to get that again when Mercury is in Libra in opposition to Neptune, where we're really not going to be clear and certain. So as we go through the next 2 to 3 days, I think you've just got to accept that you may be feeling a little bit, well, let's use my favorite word, discombobulated, and just a little bit in despair of how things are ever going to change in whatever way, in whatever area you wish for things to change in your own personal lives. Now, the way to work with this in a constructive way, with both Saturn opposite Mercury in Virgo and Neptune opposite Mercury in Libra, is to try and use some of that Saturnian discipline. Stay in your adult. Don't get caught into the frightened inner child that feels... It's like when we're children and we're waiting for something exciting, like our birthday or Christmas. And there's a despair that comes with the sort of the realization that there is still X number of weeks or months or days that we have to wait. There's something in the energy of the next few days which is about the lesson of learning to live not just in the present, but learning to live with uncertainty. Because if we can stay in the present and live with uncertainty, we have mastered an enormous life lesson, which empowers us through that wonderful energy of Pluto in Aquarius. that empowers us to recognize the unexpected opportunities as they come along, which may be in the form of ideas through Uranus in Gemini. And they're all held together, and it's like a massive kite formation. We've been in this kite formation for some time now. And I think what is super interesting is to make it very simple and think, what do kites do? They fly. You catch the wind, but you have to wait for the right gust of wind to allow your kite, your ideas, to lift off. And then the power as you pull on the rope to keep it afloat in the various cycles of air. So there's something here about the need over the next few days for discipline in our thinking and the way we communicate. Also to bring some realism into our spiritual ideas and feelings, because this is not a time to allow ourselves to get ungrounded and fly away on that kite because we've let go of the rope, so that everything actually just flies off into goodness knows where, and we don't know how we're ever going to tie things down in reality. There's something with the energy this week about learning to bring two energies or two worlds together. The world of fantasy, the world of imagination. We need to balance that as Mercury moves into Libra. We need to balance it with compassion and the ability to see that the structure that we wish to instill in our dreams can be there. We just have to avoid getting caught into negative self-talk, self-criticism, just general beating ourselves up, and making sure we communicate clearly to people that we need to say important things to. There's a reticence and a reluctance over these next few days that we will be misunderstood. Now, this is my second attempt at today's video, because the first attempt, it was full of wonderful wittering, but the wittering was almost expressing the energy of Saturn in Pisces opposite Mercury in Virgo, where I was getting so caught in the detail. And I allowed that kite to fly off. And I thought at one point, what on earth am I talking about? I know wittering's okay, but nah. And I clicked, switch off, and deleted. So here we are again. So let's look at tomorrow, the 18th, or if you're watching this on the 18th, which is Thursday. Mercury will today move into Libra, and it immediately actually is in opposition to Neptune, bar a few minutes, but the energy is there. So tomorrow we've got to really be careful that we don't get, again, super frustrated with ourselves as we try and find harmony and balance in everything that we're thinking, doing and saying. And you see, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because if you think of it, we had Saturn in Pisces. Pisces is illusion and delusion, and we just can't see it, and it's untouchable. Neptune rules Pisces, but Neptune's in Aries, where everything is very definitely there, solid, fire, action, energy. And so you've got this kind of mismatch of energies. And Mercury's moved out of the sign it rules, Virgo, where it was very comfortable, but it was getting a bit carried away with the detail. And it's moved into Libra, which gives it more ability to be balanced in one's ideas. And I think it's good that in the United Kingdom, the actual kind of political discussions that are going to take place between the United States administration with the United Kingdom government are happening tomorrow, because I think actually the energy is perhaps a little bit more helpful to them actually getting something more concrete in place. But how does that play on to the next day, September the 19th? Because Venus now will leave Leo and enter Virgo. So how do we experience Venus in Virgo? Does she become all virginal and pure? Well, I don't think so. I think she perhaps becomes more choosy and perhaps just a little bit more selective. But maybe you might find with Venus in Virgo that you are more aware of you, of yourself, of your self-worth, and what is your value to you, and what is your value to the world and to others, to friends, to colleagues. You may start to, still with this Mercury opposition to Saturn and Neptune, you still may be caught in overanalyzing and very much concerned about what other people think about you. I think it's always really important to remember that, do you know, most of the time we don't think about others, and we think others are thinking about us. I'll let you into a secret. They're not. They're thinking about themselves. In fact, most of the time, we're all thinking about ourselves. We're worrying about how we come across to people. But actually, most of the time, we are actually just in our own little microcosm of being. Now, we still have this kite formation taking us through the next few days, and still on Friday, we will have the exact opposition of Mercury opposite Neptune. Neptune, remember, in Aries, retrograde. Neptune, confusion, delusion. And Mercury in Libra, looking for balanced communication and not quite sure if it's being heard at all. And of course, Aries, interesting, because I'm thinking about the war-torn areas of the planet, and I'm wondering if something starts to come up from the end of the week as we head into the partial solar eclipse new moon in Virgo on Sunday the 21st, because there is no doubt this energy in our war-torn areas is going to get ramped up as we head towards that Mars-Pluto square next week on the 24th. And remember, we've got, again, a busy week with energy with the autumn equinox on Monday the 22nd. I'm going to do a separate video about that, and I'm going to record that later in the week. Now, coming back to the 19th and this Mercury opposite Neptune, we still have, beautifully, we still have our kite formation and our grand air trine, because Mercury is now at 0 degrees of Libra, and it's coming up to make an exact grand air trine with Uranus at 1 degree retrograde in Gemini and Pluto 1 degree retrograde in Aquarius. So you've got 3 points in air. What is air? Air is thought, thinking, ideas, thinking outside the box. But remember, trines can sometimes leave us in complacency. So it's always important to use the energy constructively and make a point of working with ideas with this grand air trine. Look at how you can instill or bring in some thinking outside the box ideas to whatever work you do, whether it's just your career, your passion, your hobby, your relationships. This is a period of opportunity to think outside the box and see results. And then, this is the week of astrology that keeps on giving, because by the time we get to Saturday, the 20th, Uranus in Gemini, as we know, retrograde at 0 degrees, part of this grand air trine, squares Venus, that of course has moved into Virgo. They're both at 1 degree and 22 minutes. And that happens on Saturday. What does this energy tell us? Well, Uranus, as we know, is disruptive and fast and mental energy, pinging ideas and all sorts of sudden shifts in our thinking, communication, networking, anything like that is going to be highlighted. I think in the news, in social media, we're going to see some surprising news coming out, and we're going to see information that's involved or involves freedom of speech, because that's been a big topic lately. Freedom of speech. We may see again this weekend more protests on the streets of many places in the world. Many places. And Venus in Virgo seeks precision, though. She is very discerning in whom she gives her affection to. And she values beauty. Beautiful ideas and thought. Oh gosh, I sound like the carrot. But you know, let's not lose the beauty of the word beauty, because there's something here about the beauty of love, but the practicality of love and how we show our love. Because remember, Virgo is the sign of service to others. So we have a wonderful opportunity to show our care for others through Venus as she transgresses through Virgo. So there's something very helpful about Venus in Virgo. And I think what we'll find as we head towards the end of the week, and often, and I know this is Saturday I'm talking about, but Friday, when the markets close, I think we might see a bit of a contraction, because Venus in Virgo is going to be a bit more cautious, a little bit more anxious about laying out any funds or money. And a square, of course, as we know, is a clash. It's a challenge. And you've got this clash of Uranus, which is freedom, innovation, surprise. Venus in Virgo, order, commitment, being very clear, precise. So we get this friction between the desire we have for newness and novelty and the unusual, and then settling for the reliability of practical friendship and love. But in relationships, Uranus square Venus in Virgo can really spark an attraction. And we could just all experience on some level an unexpected attraction to, perhaps it could just be someone we see through social media, through YouTube, through the news, that we just think, oh, that's not normally the sort of person that I find interesting or alluring, but there's something about this person I find quite fascinating. We might actually find that that is brought out in us on Saturday. And I think that in general, we will be, if we actually look at the value of the relationship and friendships we do have in our lives, we will see that if we want stability, and novelty, we have to allow something in that tension between Uranus and Venus and allow the unconventionality of Uranus to free a little bit of the Venus in Virgo energy. So it can be exciting. It can be exciting chemistry. If you meet anyone that day that is unexpected, there could be an instant attraction. And got to be careful also with unexpected expenses. Thought to self, I bet my energy bill will come on Saturday. It often comes on a Saturday. I can see it now. So I've just invited it into my life. Oh, gosh. But Uranus will jolt our Venus bit in Virgo out of being too perfectionist. That is good because Uranus can bring in some unconventionality that challenges those traditional Venus in Virgo ideas. And so those really are as I quickly look at my notes, I think it's learning to balance precision, which is Virgo, and thinking about Mercury now in Libra, with flexibility, which is Gemini, because it's a mutable sign. And of course, Virgo is also mutable. So there is some flexibility there, but sometimes it comes out in indecisiveness in Virgo. So I have some quotes on unseen forces that might be at work in our life. I thought, this might be an interesting one to look at. So we've got, first of all, 3 quotes on invisible guidance. The first one is anonymous, and this is rather lovely actually. There are unseen hands guiding the ship of your destiny, even when the waters seem chaotic. And I think that epitomizes the astrology of the next few days, where we really do have to have faith, especially if you feel you're in the dark. That's when the one thing we do have is faith. Then we have another unknown quote, which is, the winds of fate are invisible, but they fill your sails all the same. And I'm thinking also that applies to the wind of fate that lifts that kite, that astrological kite, up above the clouds to see the bigger picture. Albert Einstein suggested that coincidence, synchronicity, is God's way of remaining anonymous. And synchronicity is something that can help us through the next few days. Because if it does feel like you feel a little bit all at sea, all is not lost. Wait and look for the synchronicities. They'll be there. They'll come. Now we have 3 more, which are about the subtle power of the unseen. This first one is by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wrote that beautiful little book, The Little Prince. And it's, what is essential is invisible to the eye. And that's what we have to trust in. There's an anonymous one here, which is the unseen currents move us more deeply than the visible waves. And that's really trusting in this grand air trine. Trust in the unseen forces, because it could be a bit challenging the next few days. Friedrich Nietzsche said, invisible threads are the strongest ties. And then we've got on trusting the hidden flow. So this is really back to faith. We've got 3. The first one is by an unknown, which is, though we cannot see the wind, we trust its direction by the way the leaves move. And then we've got one by Nancy Thayer that is, the universe is always speaking to us, sending us little messages, causing coincidences and serendipities, reminding us to stop, to look around, to believe in something else, something more. Yeah. And an anonymous one here, it's a difficult word, isn't it? Anonymous. The unseen world sustains the seen. Oh, these are really important. I'm so glad I chose this topic. And the last 3 are about mystery and destiny. The first one, actually, they're all unknown. So the first one is, fate is not seen, but felt, like gravity pulling us toward what must be. And then we've got, behind the visible tapestry of our lives is a hidden loom, weaving meaning from threads we cannot see. And that, again, is about faith in the dark. Have faith in the weaving from the hidden, invisible loom of your life. And the final one, unknown saying, is, there are forces at work in this world far stronger than we can comprehend. And yet, they conspire for our becoming. So I think the next 3 days are see them a little bit as a test of faith. I certainly, on an inner level, even though paradoxically, there's some awfully good things happening in my life, I'm feeling that Virgo despair of things aren't shifting, changing as quickly as I would like them to, because I'm human and I'm trying to teach myself to trust the process, trust that hidden loom, and have faith that the bigger picture, and that I will be where I'm meant to be at the right time, in the right way, for the highest good of me and the highest good of all. So, interesting few days we have. Now, I will be back, of course, on Sunday for the live stream on the new moon partial solar eclipse, not visible really in the Northern Hemisphere. We won't get to see it. But this is a little bit like this unseen forces at work. Even though we can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not affecting us energetically. Now, I just want to also remind you of my other channel, Channeling and Stranger Things, because I've picked up the threads of that. And I uploaded a couple of days ago a new video, because I've been doing some videos of interviews or discussions with people of interesting backgrounds, of strange things. And 2 days ago, I was fortunate enough to have the wonderful master astrologer Steve Judd on the channel discussing one of his passions, and he is extremely knowledgeable about this subject, crop circles. I highly recommend watching this video that we did about crop circles on Channeling and Stranger Things, and I will put the link in the description box of this video. And I also want to remind you of something else, and of course I've forgotten what it was, but it'll come to me. Well, remember to like, comment and subscribe. I will be here on, as I said, Sunday for the live stream. Oh dear gosh, I don't know. Also, it's just still so terribly hot and humid here in Gozo, and that's actually part of what is making me feel so frustrated, because I can't get away from it. I just want to climb into my freezer and sit there for half an hour. So I've been putting things in the freezer and taking them out and covering myself with ice packs. And I mean, the air conditioning's there, it's working, but it's humid. I think it was 80% today, which is high. So anyway, I'm wittering, but you know me, it is a Wednesday witter. We've got to have a midweek witter. So remember, I will be doing a video for the autumn equinox, and I'm probably going to video that on Friday, and that'll be up. I will put it up on Friday, and then Sunday, and so on and so on. So thanks so much for joining me for a very lengthy witter. But, and thank you for your support. Thank you for all of your support. And I'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye for now. Bye.